The small forward position, the other wing position in the NBA right next to the shooting guard. We've seen a lot of versatile players and solid role players play at this position. There's also some of the greatest scorers and all-around players that we've ever seen play the game at this position as well. This is Hit the Rim, and today we're going to be ranking the top 10 small forwards going into the 2025-2026 NBA season. There are a few house-cleaning things that I do want to get into before we even start the list. They're very similar to the ones that I've had in my last two previous videos, but I actually decided to modify them a slight bit. Players who are not expected to come back from injury will not be on this list. Players who were injured at the beginning of last season but played towards the end of the season and in the playoffs will be on this list. This list is a combination of what the player looked like last year and what the potential upcoming season will look like. Just because one player is one spot above someone else doesn't mean there's that big of a gap. And lastly, please hit like and subscribe to help the channel grow, as well as comment down below your own top 10 list of small forwards. Before we even get into the actual top 10 list, I do want to list a few honorable mentions that I do have that don't make the list. My first honorable mention is Paul George. He didn't play much last year due to the fact that he did have an injured leg. Without the injury, we already know what PG looks like on a day-to-day basis, but do we really know what he's going to look like next to Maxey and Embiid if both are healthy as well? He's a great ball handler with a really nice handle. He's been always a solid shooter. His defense has taken a step back, but we do know what he's capable of on the defensive end. And one of the biggest things, which has been his whole thing throughout maybe his entire Clippers career, and even now, even on the Sixers, he just has to stay healthy. That's really it. My next honorable mention is Deni Avdija. The moment that he got to Portland, he was actually really able to play the way he wanted to. His workload also did increase by going to Portland. He's really good at getting to the rim, and he does play at a really fast pace. He's a great ball handler and has a really high passing IQ. His three-point shooting has improved from his years in Washington. I believe his last year in Washington, it was actually a career high for him. He's just really good all around. I think the one thing that he really does need, though, is that he needs to consistently show off his skills. Because if you do look at his numbers last year, he did have a bigger leap in the second half compared to the first half. My next honorable mention is Brandon Ingram. He didn't really play last year, but when he did play, he did have high-scoring games. He did get traded to Toronto right before the trade deadline, but didn't even suit up for them. It's funny because this photo of him is actually from the preseason. One thing about his game that did surprise me is that he did take a lot of catch-and-shoot threes. I think his playmaking is really underrated, and I think he's going to be a really interesting fit right next to Scottie Barnes, who will probably be more of a primary ball handler compared to him. I still think that Brandon Ingram is going to score the same way that he has in the past, but he will end up being a secondary ball handler because of Scottie Barnes. And my last honorable mention, and the guy that I think could have taken number 10, is Jaden McDaniels. He's the type of guy that I look at and I feel like he could literally guard all positions on the court. He did also play all 82 last year, which is an impressive feat in my opinion. He's really good in transition. He did start showing a little bit more aggression in his offensive game during the playoffs, and I do feel like he is a really good three-point shooter in the corner because of the fact that he's been playing with guys like Julius Randle, like Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards throughout his career. The one thing that I really do need from him, though, is to actually keep that aggressiveness and be able to score more, because I do think that his offensive output can be really high. At number 10, I've got DeMar DeRozan, the mid-range master and the guy that's been improving his playmaking ever since he got to the Spurs all those years ago. He's always been a reliable scorer, especially in the mid-range and at the rim. He's a below-average three-point shooter, which is one of his biggest weaknesses, but he did average his most attempts last year. He's also one of those players that, because of the way that he plays, he doesn't really feel like he has a proper fit in the league anywhere. But I do like how he's trying to adapt by taking a lot of threes like he did in Sacramento, and I think like his biggest weakness is the fact that he's just literally not a defender at all. At number 9, I've got Trey Murphy III. He had what I would consider a breakout season last year. He's a really good shooter. He's also a versatile offensive player, meaning that I can see him being able to create with the ball and also being able to score without having the ball in his hands all the time. He's a really athletic player and a pretty good dunker as well. His defense was good, which is I think the main reason why the Pelicans drafted him in the first place. I think with the full season, he can really be a solid number 2 next to Zion if Zion can stay healthy. The funny thing is I actually also think that he's a guy that also needs to stay healthy, because last year he did end up missing the last portion of the regular season. But the reason why he's on his list is mainly for the first half of the season and everything that he did basically almost up until right after the All-Star break. Very underrated player in my opinion, and probably one of my favorite Pelicans draft picks within the last few years, him and Herb Jones. At number 8, I've got OG Anunoby, who I really think is an underrated player. He's also kind of similar in the way that I view Jaden McDaniels. He's an elite defender. When he's aggressive, he can get high scoring games, and we saw that during the playoffs and the regular season. He's good playing off the ball. His steals are a staple basically in his defense. He does need to show a little bit more aggression on the offensive side, and he also does kind of need to improve his playmaking, because I feel like that's the one step that he can take to improve. He just kind of feels like the type of guy that's like, you know, I score and I play defense. I don't really play make. But you know, I do really like OG Anunoby and I love Suni Lee, so yeah, that's Random fun fact, I guess. At number 7, I got Franz Wagner. Despite the fact that Orlando has such bad spacing, I do think that he's a really good scorer and able to get to the rim at will. He's also the type of player that I feel like every year that I've watched him, his defense has gone up and up and up. He's also the type of player that doesn't need to dribble the ball a lot in order to score. He is a very efficient scorer as well, aside from his three-point shooting. He did show promise in his three-point shooting when Paulo went down and right before he went down in the middle of the season, but obviously his biggest weakness that everyone talks about is the fact that he just needs to find a consistent three-point shot. At number 6, we've got Jimmy Butler III, if you want to call him Jimmy Butler III. I'm still used to calling him Jimmy Butler. We all know what he's capable of. Technically, he did have a down season last year because he actually didn't play a lot of games because of his whole like sit out with the Heat and everything like that. When he got to the Warriors, he was really able to help the offense because they were a really bad rim scoring, rim finishing team, and that's what Jimmy Butler is really good at providing. His defense is still really good. His basketball IQ, I feel like, is also really good. With him and Draymond in the front court, I really do feel like they're two really good offensive playmakers. He's not a great shooter, but we've known that throughout his entire career. And it kind of does feel like last year his mid-range game did go down, which was one of the big things I think was one of his biggest tools. He does need to be a little more aggressive in the regular season, but I feel like everyone has been saying that for the last few years. And I still feel like the potential of playoff Jimmy is still there. At number 5, I've got Jaylen Brown. He had a down year last year, but he will be the number 1 option on the Celtics with potentially no Jason Tatum, despite the fact that Jason Tatum did say that he did want to come back. His playmaking needs work, but I feel like with the absence of Jason Tatum, he'll have the ball in his hands a little more next to Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. But also at the same time, depending on how the season goes, he could literally just sit out during the later half of it. And also, I feel like the one thing about him is that his consistency is pretty iffy. At number 4, I've got Jalen Williams, aka J-Dub. He made a really big leap last year. To be all NBA and all defense in the same year, literally 3 years into your career, is really impressive to me. He's always been an efficient scorer throughout his 3 years in the league. Defensively, I think he is a good shot blocker, and at the perimeter, I think he's a really good steals and perimeter defender. He had a bad playoffs 2 years ago, but last year when they won the championship, he had a really good run. He had a bad playoffs 2 years ago, but last year when they won the championship, he was able to have a bounce back year. And I really do think that he's one of the best secondary options in the league. He's also able to play multiple positions. At some point, he was playing center for them, power forward. He's played small forward, shooting guard. His versatility really showed when Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein went down early in the year. And I do feel like the one thing that holds him back from being higher on this list or being my number 3 would be the fact that he's not a first option. If he was a first option on the OKC Thunder, then he would probably be a little bit more above, maybe 3. And speaking of number 3, we've got Mr. Kawhi Leonard. I think the funniest thing about Kawhi is the fact that he's got this whole controversy going on, but I'm going to imagine this list as if he is actually going to play this season. We all know who he is. He's always hurt, but when he's healthy, he's literally a monster. And he's the type of guy that can like kind of turn on this robotic Terminator mode when he really needs to score. His defense is still pretty locked down. I mean, he's not the amazing defensive player of the year he was a few years ago, but his defense is still really solid. And the way I look at him is kind of similar to the way that I look at Jimmy Butler as well, where I feel like he's preserving his scoring in order to actually save it all for the playoffs, which I do think is a smart decision on his end, especially with all the injuries he's had these last couple of years. With the way that this current Clippers team looks on paper, it doesn't look like Kawhi is going to really have to have a big offensive output this year, so it'll be perfect for when the playoffs hit and he's able to really turn it on. At number 2, we've got Kevin Durant. He's Kevin Durant, certified bucket, a guy who can basically offensively fit on any team. He's going to continue to score at every level that he can, but maybe not as aggressively because of his Achilles injury all those years ago. And a lot of the times, I really just do feel like I've had so many moments in my life where I look at Kevin Durant and I'm like, wow, I just remember how phenomenal he is as a scorer. And I mean, honestly, like, really, what else is there to say about him? And at number 1, we've got, I would say, the GOAT of this generation, LeBron James. He has taken a step back, which is very wild to say because he's still wildly consistent. I really blame Father Time for that, but I mean, everyone blames Father Time at this point. He also won't have to be the main initiator on offense because of the fact that he's playing next to Luka Doncic, which I think is really good because LeBron is going to be 41 this year. And to ask him to really be like this number 1 option like he's been his entire career is going to be really tough at this age. So I am very thankful that Luka is going to be there to really help take the load off his shoulders. And one thing that does really make me sad is the fact that he's not going to start the season because of some UNC status injury. He's got like a butt injury or something. I don't remember what the scientific term for it is, but that's wild, man. UNC status really hit hard, man. And yeah, those are my top 10 small forwards in the NBA this season. Okay, thanks. Bye. Power forwards tomorrow. Bye.